Briefly, I was wondering if you could kind of break down the running back room as it stands, as you expect it to stand heading into the 2020 season, and after that, kind of go into the two freshmen y'all brought in, Elijah Green and DJ Jones, and what you expect from them and what you like with them in recruiting them as a player.
Well, definitely excited to be bringing back the guys that played last year. They bring a lot of maturity and experience to the group, and I'm fortunate to be going on my third year working with Mike and Javonte. So that's gives me as a position coach a little bit of confidence knowing that, got a group of guys that knows what to expect, especially in a time like this with all the uncertainty of how we've had to prepare and have meetings on Zoom and all those things. So it's been good to have those guys coming back. But, obviously having Mike Carter, who, sat down at the end of the year and had to make a decision and decided he wanted to come back and kind of continue to build on the success that he's had and also the success we had as an offense and as a program, so it's good he's coming back. And obviously he brings an explosiveness to the group. That's a guy that can do a lot of different things. And then Javonte, built on a really good sophomore season, built some confidence and became a more outspoken guy, in the locker room and on the field. So just to have him back, I think he and Mike bring a great 1-2 punch and did a great job leading a young guy in Josh Henderson, who had a couple chances in some games later in the season to make some plays and really got his shine doing the also special teams units. But this spring obviously would have been his time to kind of separate himself and show what he could do on the offensive side of the ball. And unfortunate that he didn't get that opportunity. But from a knowledge standpoint, he's probably grown, taking the biggest leap out of the group, and just from an X and O standpoint. So those are the three guys that are returning. Mine is talking about British Brooks, who's a guy who's a walk-on but very, very valuable guy on special teams. So all those guys have done a really good job. And then DJ Jones, like you talked about, is one of the freshmen that came in early. And, unfortunate for him again, a kid that busted his tail to graduate early from an academic standpoint and didn't get a chance to go in the spring and compete. But he still was able to come in and learn the offense and all those things. So I think he's way ahead of the curve, and he's excited to be back and get a chance to start practicing and get with the guys. And then Elijah Green, another kid that is coming early that did a really good job for his high school, two-time state champion. Going to be a really good football player. But, like I said, DJ and Elijah are guys that, once we start practicing here real soon with some of the walkthroughs and those things, I'll get a chance to get a feel for them a little bit more.
Is there anything you can tell us kind of what you liked about them and recruiting them? Just a couple things on the two freshmen.
You know what? Both of those kids are very smart kids, love football. And that's one of the things I try to do. I try to talk to those guys about what they like about football. Tell me some of the things you like. Tell me some of the football players you pattern your game after. Tell me some of the old school football players that you like, because to me, that kind of tells me what kind of mentality that they're going to have. Because at the running back position, you can see the things that obviously that show up on film, but you got to be a tough guy. You got to be able to take yourself mentally to a kind of nasty place at times to play the position. And so just getting to know those guys, I could tell that they were tough. They were very competitive. A guy like Elijah Green, two-time state champion, really good competitive high-level football in the state of Georgia. Dad played in the NFL, so you could just tell he had good blood, and he's a guy that knows how to train and compete. And then, DJ Jones, a kid, military family. Mom and dad are both military. Kid's got a kind of a chip on his shoulder, kind of felt like he was under-recruited. So I like those guys. I like the guys that got an edge to them, some of the things that you can't evaluate. So I think both of those kids are going to come in and compete really hard.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thanks, Ross.
Broke it down there. Thanks, Coach. Andrew Jones, we'll go to you. Go ahead and unmute yourself since I can't.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. How important is it for running backs in your offense to be able to consistently catch the ball? And how would you say that both Michael and Javonte have grown in that role?
Yeah, I tell you what, the game of football has changed a lot. It's not just about handing the ball off to a guy 30, 40 times anymore. It's about touches. If you look at the top backs in the NFL, McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, which I was able to coach at the last stop I was at, Saquon, all those guys are guys that you have to, figure out how you can get those guys touches and get them in space. And that's one thing I like about the offense that Phil brings. And he's always done a really good job of finding ways to get playmakers in space and create touches. And that's one thing that, you know, in our offense, because we don't huddle, you know, I tell the guys all the time, you have to be a guy that can do it all, because I'm not going to be able to swap you out when we get to this play or get you back in. You have to be a guy that can do it all, you know. So obviously, you know, Mike is a guy that you can put in space, run between the tackles, block. He can do it all. And I think Javonte opened up a lot of people's eyes because he's a guy that's got some of the best hands on the team. You know, so just because he's a bigger guy, I think a lot of times it may be in your mind that you have to be a smaller guy to catch the ball, but he catches the ball really, really well. And that's one of the things that we look for in recruiting. You know, we have to go get guys that not only can run the ball in between the tackles, but they're comfortable lining up in an empty formation, you know, comfortable running quick game routes, you know. So those guys really have fun with the offense, because every week you don't know what to expect. It's not just an offense where we're going to hand you the ball, but you're going to be a guy that does all the things that get you prepared for the next level, which is getting the ball to those guys in space. So fortunate that all these guys got pretty good hands.
Yeah, another question about Javonte. He had a little bit of success late 2 years ago, but last season obviously took off. How did you see his confidence grow during the course of the season? And was there a moment you recall where you thought, wow, he realized that he could play at a very high level consistently in the ACC?
I tell you what, there's a moment. I did a clinic. You know, this summer we did something really cool. We did clinics with the high school coaches all around the country, but a lot of high school coaches in the state of North Carolina tuned in. And on one of my clips, I said, this is the play that I think he changed. And it was the first game versus South Carolina. We threw him a swing pass. This was probably when we were behind about 14 points, and we're going down to score in the first 90-something yard drive. And he caught a swing pass toward our sideline, and he just ran over the safety. And when he got up, and Javonte's a quiet guy. He's never really expressed himself a lot, but he got up and he kind of flexed at the sideline, and the sideline went crazy. And I remember that moment being on the sideline, and in my mind I said, he's ready. You know, because, you know, I think his freshman year he was just trying to find a place to fit in. But that moment in that game, I'll never forget it, was the moment I said he's ready. And that's what you saw from him. I mean, you saw his confidence get better. And I tell you this, and his confidence has gotten a whole lot better. So if you look at freshman year, kind of a kid trying to feel his way around, sophomore year gained a lot of confidence. The sky's the limit for what he can do his junior year, because I think he understands that he fits what we do offensively. His teammates respect him, and I think he knows he's good enough to dominate on this level.
Good stuff. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll go to Pat James. Pat, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, kind of on that note a little bit, just kind of what sort of steps are you hoping to see Michael and Javonte continue to make to improve?
You know, just I thought they did a really good job of staying healthy, you know, and a lot of that comes from, I think they understand that, yes, one guy could have stayed in the game and probably ran for 1,800 yards, 1,900 yards, but I think they respect the fact that their durability and their ability to stay healthy was based off having those guys fresh. And, you know, I know a lot of people will leave one guy in, but, you know, I think that for the longevity of our season and for us to be able to stay healthy and, you know, just get these guys throughout the season, I think the way we spread those guys out and play them together, I think they understood that was the best thing for them in the long run. So I think the ability for those guys to get back here and work out with Coach Hess and get stronger, get back in shape. And, you know, I say all the time, the best ability in a running back is durability. You know, so the fact that they can take care of their bodies and get back with our nutritional staff and get stronger, you know, those guys can both stay strong and stay healthy, and we can still find ways to get both of those guys involved in the game. I'd like to find another guy, you know, that we can get involved. So if we can do those things, I think Mike and Javonte and the rest of the group will be able to have some success this season.
You mentioned how Josh really improved from a X and O's perspective. Kind of what other ways did you see him just kind of evolve since he arrived on campus?
Confidence. You know, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, he came into a group of guys that he wasn't called upon to have to come in and play last year. You know, so he was able to sit back and just learn the game. So after every game, I would go up to Josh after the game and say, "Tell me what you learned." And it was interesting to hear him say, "Coach, I saw the ball security, how important it is. I saw how important it is to strain to get a first down." So he was able to see, because I think as a freshman, you think I'm ready to come play. But when you get into the game and you're on the sideline and you see all the moving parts of it, that's where you learn, you know. So he learned a lot as far as what the demands are that goes into being a college football player. And, like I said, this offseason, this spring was going to be his chance to go out and show those things that he learned. And but he didn't panic, and we didn't as a team. I think we've used this opportunity to watch film a lot more, be able to communicate and talk to our players a lot more. And those guys have been watching a lot of film. So I think his film studies improved. His confidence got better because through knowledge, you gain confidence. So I think he's probably in his most comfortable spot that he's been since he's been here.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate it, Pat.
Appreciate it, Pat. Go to Alyssa. Alyssa, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, Coach, I know the players have been staggering back to campus. How's that whole process been, and how difficult is this trying to do all these protocols and kind of learning with this new normal here?
Well, it's been great. I think it all starts about your attitude that you have toward it. I think our kids have had a, don't blink mentality as far as they trust everything that we have in place for them. And, I think we have a great plan of how we slowly bring the guys back. And, those guys have been excited about the process. Just we're taking things slowly. We understand that these are different times, and we just have to be able to adjust, and so far everything's been really, really good. Being able to kind of see these guys just kind of get started with some classes and getting these guys back around the strength staff and all that. So the great thing has been to see those guys together. Seeing those guys walk around the building. Obviously, everybody's practicing social distancing and taking all the precautions, so that way we can make sure that we do all the things to protect the program, the players, and try to protect our season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa. We'll go to Gregory. Gregory, you're up.
Hey, Coach. I was just wondering what your expectations were for the backs this year, and what do they need to do to meet those expectations?
We just have to strive every day to improve as a unit. Just from an X's and O standpoint, from getting stronger, from getting back in shape. Just obviously the time that we've had off, away from being here in Chapel Hill. But my expectations are like they are every year. We have to be one of the best units on the football field. And I think that's where you compete within each other. The receivers want to be the best unit, the running backs, the offensive line, the linebackers. So we just challenge ourselves every day to just do the on and off the field. And so we just find different ways to challenge ourselves. How we watch film, is very competitive. Once we begin to do walkthroughs, which NCAA will allow us to do that as time permits, we want to be the best in the walkthroughs. Just all the things that will give us a chance to be the best unit, which will in turn make us the best football team in this conference and in the country. I think we try to find ways to challenge ourselves every day, Greg.
Last year, Matt came out pretty early saying that the running back room was the best unit. There were a lot of question marks with the offensive line, the receivers with Sam. Now the whole country knows that the wide receiver group is one of the best in the country. The offensive line has more cohesion, and everyone knows what Sam can do. So how does that ramp up your running backs with that competition?
Like I said, the competition that you have every day starts with on campus. You have to push each other every day, unit by unit. And, if I'm being honest, we have a deal where we just put blinders on and we just focus forward. We don't listen to the comparisons. We don't listen to any outside, of what we have to do, because in our room, we have a standard that we set for ourselves. And if we can go out every day and just push each other in the room, Mike Carter every day is competing with Javonte. Javonte's competing with Josh. So nothing changes. I don't have to go and try to resell this thing because when I first got here 3 years ago, I asked each of those guys, how great do you want to be? And the foundation was set. So when Josh came, he didn't have a choice. Now that Elijah Green's here, he doesn't have a choice. And we want to compete with each other so much that we don't worry about the outside to the left or right, whether it's the next room. We want to work so hard every day that when the offensive line puts the film on, they get motivated. The receiver group sees how hard we work, they get motivated. And then in turn, when the defensive line at Pitt or Clemson or whoever we play, they see us, they see us competing. So we feed off the energy that the offensive line brings every day. We feed off Diami going and catching big balls and finishing down the field. So I think that's the fun thing about our team. Our team is so competitive. And our kids, love each other, but they love to compete against each other so much. So some of the outside accolades and pushing us as a team, Of course, we'll hear some of it, but we got to stay focused on, what's going on in between these walls here in Chapel Hill, and then everything else will take care of itself.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Gregory. Go back to Ross here. Ross, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Got it. Hey, Coach, you have a pretty unique coaching experience. You've played and coached in only Power 5 schools. So I was wondering, how UNC has been for you for 3 years. You coached under Larry Fedora and now 2 years under Mac, or heading into your second year under Mac Brown. How does UNC compare, and what's your experience been like at UNC compared to South Carolina, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Tennessee?
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm fortunate. The Lord has blessed me. I've been able to coach at some very tradition-rich places. Been around some really good head coaches. Been around some really good players, and all that's led me to be here at the University of North Carolina, and it's been great. Obviously to have a chance to coach under Coach Brown, and just see the way he leads and motivates, because I believe your program starts at the top and works its way down. And just being able to see how he treats his players, how he treats his staff, how the former players come back and they react, the reception that we get now when we go into local high schools because of the brand that we have has been great. The University of North Carolina has a logo that can go anywhere. So it's been fun to be able to go recruit the type of kids that fit us, that fit the program. That's what Coach Brown talks about all the time. We're going to recruit to a profile. So we get to go recruit kids and families that understand, the combining of on the field and off the field, the academics, the life after football. And the kids that we have here are great. They come in the football building ready to focus on football, because they woke up at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they've been competing in the classroom all day. So it's easy for those guys to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, compete with some of the brightest minds in the country, and then transition at 2:30 to football, because they've been competing all day. So that's the part I tell people around the country, all my other buddies in other schools or in this profession, that it's fun to coach these kids here because they're so smart and they're driven to compete, not just on the field, but off the field. They compete the same way. So it's really been a breath of fresh air for me, and I've been a lot of really good places, but University of North Carolina is very unique, and I'm having a blast being here with Coach Brown and the rest of the staff.
And then briefly, you mentioned a little bit about recruiting and the brand that UNC has. How has it shifted maybe in the last, even 6 months, 12 months, when this recruiting thing has really gotten rolling? And what have you noticed about how UNC is perceived locally, regionally, and even nationally with how y'all doing the recruiting trail?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, being at other places and having to recruit against University of North Carolina, you always knew that it was a talent-rich state. A state that had a lot of really good high school football players. The high school coaching here is really good. And then up until the Virginias and along the East Coast, it was a hotbed for recruiting. And it was a sleeping giant, and obviously Coach Fedora did some really good things. And just to have Coach Brown back, he has a blueprint, and I think that's what families and coaches and uncles and everybody who understands Mac Brown and what that name means, now that he's back, it's just people want to be a part of it. Kids and families want to trust someone who has a blueprint, have done it before. It's hard to sell something where you want to do it for the first time, but if you've done it before, like Coach Brown has, we just present that. Hey, here's the package. Here's how you fit into it. We're going to recruit to a profile, and you fit it. And I think families are excited about that we selectively say, you fit what we want to do and what we want to present. And I think we fit you. So I think it's a give and take. I think they feel like we give them enough to make them excited and comfortable as a family. And it's been really great for us. Recruiting's going well, and it goes out to also the fan base. Everybody's so excited that these recruits that we're talking to, they see that football is very, very important. So it's been fun, and hopefully we continue the momentum.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, Ross. We got another one from Pat here.
Just in what ways will you guys miss Antonio Williams the most, both on and off the field?
Leadership, energy, very unselfish. Kind of like a grandfather in the locker room. All those things. Just any word I can think of that talks about how mature, how much of a leader he was. Those are the things that you can't replace. You just hope that somebody saw him every day and will be able to carry that torch, and how to be a great teammate, how to be the leader. And from an X and O standpoint, obviously we'll train guys to come in and take on that role, but just the stuff that's off the football field is the stuff you really can't replace. But like you said, you just hope somebody in the locker room, he rubbed off on somebody. But his energy every day was infectious. I had a chance to learn a lot. And for me, I'm a better coach when I'm coaching kids that I learn from. I'm sure, Pat, the same way you. I mean, you're great at your profession. If you can learn from Andrew or learn from Jeremy, just the relationships you have. As a coach, it's the same way. I don't want to coach a guy that I can't learn something from, and he better learn something from me. So he's the guy that I learned a lot from. But the most important thing was just his leadership and how unselfish he was as a football player.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
JB, I'll call on you, but we got the rule. You got to turn the camera on. There you are.
Now you got to turn your mic on.
Throw your mic on, JB. I can't unmute you. There you go.
Now?
Yep.
When did you start this rule? Where did this come from?
Oh, we've been doing it for weeks now.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach, thanks so much for taking out time for us. I want to go back to your recruiting soundbite that you just gave as far as how well that's been going for you guys. Obviously, you got another big name yesterday with the cornerback. But I'm curious to know how much aggression is being put into play when it comes to the recruiting, and how much of it is it coming from Mac? When he comes to filtering that down to his assistant coaches, when you're out there on the recruiting trail, as far as being aggressive, like, I'm not here to wait. We're here to compete now and go after championships immediately. Is that being taught at all in these recruiting sessions?
Well, I tell you what, a sports car is only aggressive as the foot that's on the pedal. So Mac Brown is definitely the foot that's on the pedal that's pushing the vehicle to go fast and be aggressive, and that's what you want. I mean, you want someone that's driving that vehicle to say, hey, let's test this thing out, see how fast it can go. And that's what he's allowed us to do. So he's told us to go be aggressive, go recruit the kind of kids that fit who we are and where we want to go as a program. And we've been able to aggressively go recruit. And we got a great product to sell. We're a young football team. I think everyone around the country and the recruits were able to see that, Coach Brown wants to put the best players on the field, regardless of how old or how young you are. And I think that's the part that's exciting. These kids want to go somewhere where they can come in and play. They can help. Looks like you're having fun. We put a fun brand of offense on the football field as well as a fun, aggressive brand of defense on the football field. And that's what people want. I mean, they want to see the results. They want to see, can you go win? But, again, going back to the foot being pressed on the gas pedal, it all starts with how aggressive our head coach wants to be. He's very involved. He wants to know every kid. He wants to know their families. He wants to Zoom. He wants to text messages with those guys. So it's easy to go sell a great product and also have someone who's pushing you just as hard. So, it makes it easy. It makes it easy. We just got to go get the kids.